A340-600. Now I booked the ticket in economy, although the seat itself was actually in premium economy, so it seems unfair to do a review of either of those. So what I'm going to do is instead talk about the history of this aircraft, which is becoming increasingly rare as a lot of the airlines are retiring them. And then I'll finish off with some footage from on board the flight. So let's first begin with some history. Back in the 1970s, the long-haul aviation market was dominated by the 4-engined Boeing 747 and older 707s and the 3-engined McDonnell Douglas DC-10. Due to the reality that engines weren't particularly powerful and reliable back in those days, you essentially needed at least 3 to take off a heavy airliner and, importantly, cross oceans. While a modern airliner can continue flying on one engine for hours, that wasn't the case back then. So with these limitations in mind, it's understandable why Airbus developed both 2- and 4-engine models based off the A300 design. The twin A330 would fly medium and longish routes, while the 4-engined A340 could cross large oceans and continents. In fact, the -500 model had the longest range of any airliner up until the Boeing 777-200LR entered service in 2006. They shared a lot of the structure and wings, which is why they look pretty similar, although the later and longer variants of the A340, such as the -600 model I'm flying today, did come with modified wings and bigger engines. Another fun fact was that the -600 model was even longer than the double-deck A380 and remained the longest airliner in service until the arrival of the Boeing 747-8 in 2010. The A340 was introduced in 1993 with Lufthansa and Air France, while this longer -600 model I'm flying in was introduced in 2001, with the idea being that it could replace the 747s. Unfortunately for Airbus, only a few years behind them was Boeing, who were taking advantage of the dramatic improvements in engine technology with their new big twin Boeing 777. The two engines were now powerful enough to lift a heavy airliner and reliable enough to allow airlines to fly across oceans, with this particular airliner, as you can see now, the Boeing 767 being the first big twin to get such approval. In 2011, Airbus announced that production of the A340 would cease, and after 380 were built, although its 2-engined A330 shorter brother continues in production to this day, although in a modified form. The Boeing 777 has been incredibly successful and also remains in production with over 1,600 delivered. Airbus, not wanting to miss out on the long-range big twin party, now produce the A350, which you can see now, and Iberia are using these to replace the aging A340s. Now you know a bit more about this aircraft, let's get on board and fly to London. And just quickly, if you enjoy aviation, please check out my channel for many more similar videos. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook. As I said in the introduction, this seat is sold as premium economy on long-haul routes, although on this shorter flight it was sold as economy. Therefore there wasn't any food, so I won't really talk about the in-flight experience other than briefly having a look at the seat, and here it is. In front of you is this adjustable touchscreen, which actually works really well. There's a storage ledge just below that, and down at your feet is a fold-out footrest. The legroom itself is otherwise perfectly reasonable for premium economy. There's bottle holders to your left, and down by your legs are 2 power plugs and USB ports to share with your neighbour, although hopefully yours will have been cleaned better than mine was. Between the seats is a little ledge, your in-flight entertainment controls, and of course there's a fold-out table. Above you are 2 reading lights, although there's no individual air vents, which is unfortunate as I usually find cabins generally too hot and really appreciate the flow of air. And of course, outside the window is a fantastic view of the wing and engines, although sadly my windows were pretty dirty. We ended up sitting and waiting for 90 minutes as extra passengers arrived, or didn't arrive, and then their bags had to be offloaded. After watching this aircraft's replacement takeoff, it was our turn. I will cut the full takeoff short, but please check out my second channel called Stuart Extra for the full unedited takeoff, and I'll include a link to that in the video description below. Now I'm really sorry about the state of these windows, as the view would have been pretty spectacular as the sun was behind us, but I guess there's not much I could have done about it. Here's a quick look at the in-flight entertainment, which was pretty reasonable. The screen itself was good quality and very responsive to touch. I really enjoyed checking out in-flight maps, as it's always fun identifying locations below you, although this one is really showing its age. Having said that, and considering the age of the aircraft, I was really impressed that it did have Wi-Fi, although it was mighty expensive at $40 for only 50 megabytes. I thought it might be interesting to briefly compare this view with footage I took years ago on board a Cathay Pacific A340-300 with the much smaller CFM 56 engines. So one of the upgrades with the Dash 500 and 600 models was the introduction of the larger Rolls-Royce Trent 500s, which purely from an aesthetic point of view look fantastic. The views coming into land in London were pretty impressive, and again I'll upload the full landing on my other channel. This flight was actually my first and probably my last flight on board the Dash 600 variant, and I don't believe any other A340s are flying regularly to Australia, which is why I quite literally flew to Madrid for 3 hours and caught this back to London. It's a good aircraft, and Iberia have recently refurbished the interior, so I imagine they'll be flying for a little while longer, although there's 4 engines just made it a little uncompetitive when compared with those big twins. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please click the thumbs up button. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the A340 and even stories from when you've flown in them. Again, I'd love for you to check out my channel, as there are a lot of aviation geek videos, including several flights on board the A340's little brother, the A330. Thanks for watching, and please enjoy the view as we land into London.
que este vuelo se realizará en la Terminal 5. Aquellos clientes que continúen el tránsito con cualquiera de las compañías Onboard, por favor, sigan las indicaciones de vuelos en conexión